Hello there, it's Josiah Savar from Sing His Songs Multimedia. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to our series on music theory for the worship pianist. Today I have kind of a pet peeve / rant topic for you. I wanted to talk about one of my biggest issues I have with the popular music approach to playing piano and just playing music in general. This pet peeve is known as the pentatonic scale, and it's a very popular scale, and for good reason too. And I'm not going to say that it has no merit, no value. It has its place. But I feel like a lot of the time we learn the pentatonic scale as an easy way to improvise or write melodies, and we miss out on so much because we never learn the other scales, or at least we never really use them. The motto of the pentatonic scale that you'll hear is that you can't play a wrong note when you use that pentatonic scale. And it's kind of true, but I also think that the pentatonic scale can be kind of inhibiting, especially if that's your main go-to scale for soloing. Let's jump in by first getting on the same page about what the pentatonic scale is and why it even exists, how it sort of works. So a pentatonic scale, as you might have guessed, has 5 notes in it, as opposed to a diatonic scale, major or minor, which has 7 notes, right? The way we get to that pentatonic scale is we will take the standard diatonic scale, major or minor, again, and we will remove instances of half steps. Every half step that's in there, we will remove those. If you remember a major or minor scale in their standard form, they each have 2 half steps built into them, right? So if we take those 2 notes out, we end up with 5 left, so pentatonic scale. So let's see what that would look like for our major and minor scales. If we take all the half steps out of our major scale and we want to build a pentatonic scale, we end up with the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Those scale degrees, right? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Okay, that's our major pentatonic. Our minor pentatonic is going to use 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1. Right? Probably heard that before. Now, why would we do this? Well, this might be sort of opinion, but I think it's true, is that half steps are dissonance, okay? There's really no way around it. Those 2 notes are so close together, they kind of fight with each other. Those frequencies are so similar, they just push and pull against each other in sometimes not a very pleasant way, right? You might want to plug your ears for this, okay? If I just play half steps together like that, it's ugly, right? You can hear that dissonance, even if, right? It's not very pretty. So that's why the pentatonic scale exists, because half steps are ugly. Those notes don't always work on top of chords, okay? But half steps don't have to be ugly. They don't have to be dissonant. You can learn to use them in a pleasant way. And actually, this is the reason why I don't like using the pentatonic scale very much, is because half steps can be the most powerful type of movement, the most powerful interval that we have available in music. They just have such a pull on them. It pulls you to the next note. If we think about a standard major scale, if I were to just stop there, right? But it has this pull, and if we go all the way up, that half step pulls up, right? And it's easy to hear. Anybody can sing that, right? Half steps are also easy to sing. That's the other thing, is because they're all so close together. So let me give you a few examples of how half steps can be very powerful and why I recommend learning the standard scales and using them for the majority of your time. Let's look at one from harmony. Let's look at an example in harmony. A couple examples, actually. Let's look at dominant to tonic resolutions. We talked about that quite a bit over these past couple weeks. Dominant to tonic resolution. Okay, so we have that 5 chord to that 1 chord. We've said on this channel that that is the most powerful resolution that we have available in Western music. But why is it powerful? The dominant chord, as you remember, is a major minor 7 chord. So it has a major chord with a minor 7th on top. And we like to omit that 5th note. So in the key of C, we could use the notes G, B, and F. So that's the 1st, 3rd note, and the 7th note of that chord. And, right? That note G in the dominant chord, that's important. It gives us the root of the chord, but it's not where the movement happens because we share that note with the 1 chord. The C chord has the root of the 5 chord inside of it. Where the movement really happens is between that third note and the seventh note. We have B and F. That's also a dissonant interval, by the way, those 6 half steps apart. But what happens with it is the third note moves up by a half step to the tonic note, and the seventh note of that chord moves down by a half step to the third note of the chord. So we have B to C and F to E. So we have, you hear that? That is really why the dominant Teutonic resolution is powerful, because of those half steps. It has 2 half steps moving in contrary motion, and it just has this collapsing feel. It's like you can't stick here. This is very unstable. It has to go there. And we could even resolve it to an A minor chord, because we still have that B, F to C, E, right? So that makes dominant chords versatile too, because of those half steps, right? Even if we look at the Amen chord, the 4-1 resolution. If we listen, we have a half step there. Amen, right? Between F and E. So that is how half steps can help in harmony. That's how half steps help harmony become more powerful and just a little bit more driving. They have this destination to them. They have to go somewhere. But if we look at melody, this is where it gets really cool. When we use half steps in melody, it can create this really stirring feel to it. But you have to use it intentionally. You have to be careful where you use it, okay? So let's take a C chord. And we're gonna go from that root of the chord to a half step down. And we're gonna lay. Okay? That's a very cool melody. Right, so we can play around with that note, the 7th note of the scale, right, that B. And we could even go to their A minor chord. And then the B is inside of that G chord. So there's an example of using a half step in a melody where it has this really like continuing sore spot, right? It's like this unresolved conflict that keeps coming back, and we want it to go there, but it just keeps coming back, right? So you can feel that pull, how when you hit that half step, it doesn't feel quite resolved, but it's kind of a beautiful way to look at it. A lot of popular songs use that, like even looking at something like Over the Rainbow, right? We have that half step. Right? And that creates this very longing vibe to it, right? Which is appropriate for that song, right? Right? It has that reach to it. We reach up to a resolved point, right? We just go from tonic to tonic, and then we go down a half step. We're like, we're not quite there. You know, it doesn't feel quite right. So adding that dissonance can create like this longing and unsettled feeling, but it doesn't have to be ugly. It can be kind of this beautiful longing kind of pull towards something that we want, and you can finally give it at the end. And that's another one of my favorite ways to use these half steps, is to finally give you that resolution at the end, right? We can go through like a chord progression. We can go like, right? We can use that suspension, that half step suspension over to finally give you what you want at the end of the song. A couple words of caution about using these half steps. They're not a solve-all solution, right? Just like the pentatonic scale, we want to be intentional about where we put our half steps and when we decide to omit them and go more pentatonic. Study the notes in the chords that are in your progression and just test out what notes go good together. If it doesn't sound good, try something else. If you land on something that you really like, use that. Keep it in your little bag of tricks, right? So really it comes down to practice and familiarity with the instrument. And all this to say, there's nothing really wrong with the pentatonic scale. What I don't like about it is that a lot of us tend to use it as, I guess, a crutch to not think about what we're doing when we improvise. We're just like, oh, just play a pentatonic scale and it will all be good. There are plenty of songs that use strictly pentatonic notes, like maybe the most famous would be Amazing Grace, right? That opening line is all pentatonic. So again, there are places to use pentatonic scale. There's a time to remove that dissonance and give it a very simple feel, because that's what pentatonic really kind of ends up doing a lot of times. You'll hear it a lot in children's songs and folk songs, just because it has this very simple feel to it. There's not much tension, right? And that can be a good thing sometimes. But I would recommend learning all of your standard diatonic scales, major and minor. Use those notes, use those colors, and then start learning some exotic scales too, right? There are so many tools available to us if you'll just study and practice, and it can really make your playing a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed that video. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much.